Otto Maul, an SS officer known as the Butcher of Birkenau, was executed by hanging on May 28, 1946, at Landsberg Prison. From 1943 to 1945, Maul oversaw the crematoria and killing operations at Auschwitz-Birkenau, playing a central role in the mass murder of Hungarian Jews in 1944. He became infamous for his brutality, forcing prisoners to burn bodies in open pits and personally shooting victims without mercy. After the war, Maul attempted to flee, but was captured and brought before a U.S. military tribunal at Dachau. Witnesses provided detailed testimony about his crimes, revealing the horrific scale of his actions. Found guilty of war crimes and crimes against humanity, he was sentenced to death. On that May morning in 1946, Otto Maul was led to the gallows, meeting his end after overseeing so much death at Birkenau. This is the part 4 of our exploring the brutal trials and executions of World War II Nazis after defeat. Arthur Gryer, known as Nazi Germany's governor of the Warthegau, was one of the most powerful officials in occupied Poland. In his cell, he awaited judgment for the policies that had spread terror across millions of lives. As the highest-ranking Nazi in Western Poland, Gryer oversaw mass deportations, executions, and the systematic persecution of Jews and Poles. His region became a testing ground for some of the regime's most brutal racial laws. At his post-war trial in Poland, witnesses detailed the destruction he ordered and the suffering he caused. The evidence against him was overwhelming. The tribunal found him guilty of war crimes and crimes against humanity and sentenced him to death. Shortly after the verdict, cameras recorded Gryer being led to a car that would take him to his execution. Pale and silent, the man who had once ruled the Warthegau now faced the judgment of history. On May 22, 1946, in Prague, Nazi official Hermann Frank faced the ultimate punishment. As one of the most powerful figures in occupied Czechoslovakia, Frank served as state secretary, overseeing the brutal suppression of resistance and orchestrating atrocities, including the massacre at Lysy. Following the assassination of Reinhard Heydrich in 1942, the village was destroyed. Hundreds of men were shot, women deported, and children sent to concentration camps. After the war, Frank was captured by American forces and transferred to Czechoslovakia. His trial revealed the full scope of his crimes, with witnesses testifying to his iron-fisted rule and the terror he imposed on the Czech population. The verdict was inevitable: death. On that May morning, thousands gathered to witness his execution. Pale and silent, Frank was led to the gallows and executed by the pole hanging method, a brutal process in which the condemned is hoisted by the neck until death. On November 11, 1944, in Toul, France, German civilian Stefan Cordes was accused of espionage. Disguised as a forced laborer, he had crossed Allied lines to gather intelligence for the German army. His capture led to a swift U.S. military tribunal, which found him guilty of spying behind enemy lines, a crime punishable by death. Testimony revealed that Cordes had provided critical information on troop movements and supply routes, endangering American lives. His defense, that he was coerced and only following orders, failed to persuade the judges. The verdict was clear: death by firing squad. At dawn, soldiers led Cordes to a clearing. Bound to a post, he received final prayers from a priest. Moments later, a volley of rifles rang out, and Stefan Cordes collapsed lifeless, his execution marking the swift enforcement of wartime justice. On December 7, 1945, in Dachau courtroom, political prisoner and bloc leader Kristoff Lewig Null delivered his final testimony before a U.S. military tribunal during the Capo trials. Null was accused of beating and torturing fellow prisoners, and the court determined that his actions exceeded any responsibility for maintaining order. Multiple instances of brutality were documented against him. 2 days later, on December 13, 1945, Null was sentenced to death by hanging, one of 36 men convicted in the major Dachau camp trial. His sentence was carried out at Landsberg prison on May 29, 1946. In the moments before his execution, Null addressed the firing squad, his voice trembling. "I didn't beat the prisoners in my block. I just slapped them. I wouldn't have denounced them otherwise." This statement was a chilling attempt at mitigation in the face of overwhelming evidence. If you want these lessons of history remembered, like this video, subscribe, and share it. Comment below which story struck you the most and why. Stay tuned for more untold chapters from the darkest corners of World War II.